The plains at night are never truly silent. They breathe with the sigh of tall grass shifting under invisible hands, the hum of insects woven into the darkness, the distant bark of a dog carried farther than it should travel. And sometimes, beneath the canopy of stars over Venezuela's endless plains, there is something else. A sound so thin, so sharp, it feels less like it's heard than slipped under the skin. A whistle. It does not come from a man, at least not any living one. They call it El Silbón, the whistler, a figure said to wander the night, tall as a shadow stretched by moonlight, carrying the weight of a sack slung across his back. What is in that sack, the stories say, are the bones of his victims, or worse, the bones of his own father. His whistle drifts over the grasslands in a strange, unearthly trick. When it sounds far away, the danger is near. When it sounds close, you may already be safe. It is a backwards warning, a cruel distortion of sense. The story of El Silbón comes from a land where the earth itself seems endless, where loneliness clings to the horizon, and where the night is so vast that it feels alive. It is in that emptiness that a sound can cut deepest, a whistle with no source, no breath behind it, no body to explain it. The legend is not told like a campfire story meant to entertain. It is spoken like a memory, with the solemn weight of something people believe might be waiting just beyond their doorstep. For generations, farmers, cowhands, and villagers have whispered about the tall figure who roams the night roads, punishing the cruel and testing the wicked, drawn especially to drunkards, to the unfaithful, to those who stumble home careless and unguarded. This is a journey, a descent into folklore, fear, and the fragile line between myth and memory. In the chapters ahead, we will walk the path of El Silbón. We will trace his origins, hear the stories of those who claim to have met him, and uncover the rituals meant to keep him at bay. We will explore the versions of his legend, the historical echoes that shaped him, and the reason he still lingers in the minds of those who dare to listen. And so, when the grass bends, though no wind moves, when a whistle threads through the night air with impossible precision, people still ask themselves the same question. Is it only the wind playing tricks? Or has the whistler found them? This is his story, his land, his curse, and perhaps his warning. To understand El Silbón, we must first step into the vast, untamed plains of Venezuela and Colombia, the Llanos. It is a land of extremes, stretching for hundreds of miles, where the horizon rarely breaks, and where the sky seems larger than anywhere else on Earth. By day, the plains are suffocated by a heavy sun that bakes the soil until it cracks. Herds of cattle move across the savannas like dark stains in the golden grass, while cowhands on horseback, Llaneros, ride with their whips and songs, carving out lives in a place both harsh and beautiful. By night, the world transforms. The moonlight spills like silver across the open land, painting everything in long shadows. The air cools, the insects sing louder, and the emptiness of the plains becomes more profound. It is here, under this endless canopy, that the legend of El Silbón was born. The story first took root in the 19th century, carried on the voices of ranchers and travelers who spoke of a spectral figure haunting the backroads and riverbanks. Oral tradition gave him life long before any writer put him to paper. Villages in the Venezuelan states of Portuguesa, Barinas, and Apure all claim him as their own, each insisting the whistler walks their fields, punishes their drunkards, hunts their sinners. Across the border, in Colombia's Casanare and Meta regions, the same whistle is said to travel on the wind. The boundaries between countries never mattered to the legend, because the plains themselves, vast and borderless, are the whistler's true home. The Llanos shaped the myth as much as the people who told it. This is a place where death can come easily, through the bite of a snake, the horns of a bull, the rising flood of rivers swollen in the rainy season. The people who lived there were no strangers to hardship. Their stories, their warnings, were sharpened by survival. Out of this soil grew the belief in a restless spirit, one that punishes excess, stalks the vulnerable, and reminds every traveler that the night belongs to more than just the living. For the communities of the plains, the tale of El Silbón was not abstract folklore. It was woven into daily life, a constant reminder that one's actions carried weight. Parents told it to children as both bedtime warning and moral lesson. Drunkards who vanished on their way home were said to have crossed his path. Every unexplained whistle, every distant sound in the dark, became a reminder of his presence. Thus, in the wide, lonely stretches of Venezuela and Colombia, where the land itself feels eternal, the legend of El Silbón found fertile ground. And from the whispers of cowhands, from the hushed warnings of mothers to their sons, the whistler stepped out of shadow and became a figure feared by all who walk the plains at night. Long ago, before the roads were paved and the stars were drowned by electric light, there was a boy born into a quiet house on the edge of the plains. His name is lost to time, but his story remains, etched into the wind, whispered by trees, and carried in the breath of those who still remember. He was not like other children. From the moment he could speak, his voice carried command, not curiosity. He did not ask, he demanded. He did not cry, he raged. His parents, worn and weary, tried to soften him with kindness, but the boy's heart was hard. His hunger was not for love, but for control. One day, he asked for meat, not bread, not fruit, not the simple meals of the plains. He wanted deer, fresh, tender, hunted, and brought to him by his father. It was not a request. It was an order. His father, a quiet man with calloused hands and tired eyes, left at dawn to hunt. He walked deep into the forest, where the trees grew thick and the air was heavy. He searched, he waited, but the deer did not come. And so, empty-handed, he returned home. The boy was waiting. When he saw his father without the prize, something inside him snapped. The fury that had simmered for years boiled over. He struck, not with hesitation, not with fear, but with violence. He tore his father's chest open. He took his heart and liver and carried them to his mother. "Cook them," he said. She did not know, not at first. She prepared the meal with trembling hands, the scent rising into the rafters. But when she learned the truth, when she saw what he had done, her screams split the silence of the plains. She cursed him, not with spells, not with magic, but with grief, with the kind of sorrow that stains the soul and echoes through generations. The boy's grandfather, a man carved from stone and silence, took him into the wilderness. No words were spoken, no mercy was offered. Beneath the twisted trees, he ordered dogs set upon the boy to tear his flesh. Then he tied him to a post. The whip cracked through the air, each lash a sentence, each strike a memory carved into flesh. Then came the alcohol, poured over the wounds like fire. Then the chili, rubbed in with slow, deliberate hands. But pain was not enough. The grandfather gathered the bones of the murdered father, wrapped them in cloth, and placed them in a sack. He hung the sack over the boy's shoulder and whispered the final punishment. "You will carry him, forever, until the wind forgets your name." Then he released him. The boy did not scream. He did not cry. He walked into the plains, into the silence, into legend. From that day forward, he was no longer a boy. He became a shadow, a curse, a whisper on the wind. He walked still, tall as the trees, thin as the breath before a scream, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. His sack of bones clinked softly with every step, filled not only with his father's remains, but with others, victims, sinners, wanderers who crossed his path. But it is the whistle that defines him. Always the same, always reversed. It drifts through the air like a lullaby for the damned, and it plays tricks on the ears. If it sounds close, he may still be far, but if it sounds distant, he may already be standing behind you. He does not speak. He does not run. He drifts through villages, through forests, through dreams. He seeks those who stray, the drunkard who stumbles home beneath a moonless sky, the unfaithful who hides behind lies, the wanderer who walks alone. When he finds them, he does not rage. He does not shout. He simply adds their bones to his sack and moves on. El Silbón is a reminder that some sins echo louder than words, that some curses walk beside us, unseen but never absent. And when the wind grows still, when the dogs begin to whimper, when the whistle floats through the night like a forgotten song, you will know he is near. Legends, like rivers, twist and split as they flow through time. The story of El Silbón is no different. Though its roots are buried deep in the soil of Los Llanos, its branches stretch across villages, generations, and imaginations, each one shaping the tale to fit its own fears. In one version, El Silbón is not merely a cursed soul, but a hunter of the wicked. He stalks the night in search of drunkards, draining the alcohol from their bodies until they collapse, empty and cold. His whistle is said to lure them from safety, guiding them into the open where he waits, silent and still. Another version paints him as a punisher of betrayal. The unfaithful, those who break vows and hearts, are his prey. He does not speak. He does not chase. He simply appears, and when he leaves, only bones remain. Some say he adds them to his sack. Others believe he scatters them across the plains as a warning. There are whispers of El Silbón counting bones outside the homes of his chosen victims. The sound is faint, like pebbles dropped one by one onto dry wood. If you hear it, and you're the only one who does, it means your time is near. By morning, you will be gone. In certain villages, the legend shifts again. El Silbón is not a man, but a spirit born from the land itself, a guardian twisted by sorrow. He walks not to punish, but to remind, to keep the memory of violence alive so it may never be repeated. His whistle is not a threat, it is a lament. Some stories claim he appears only during the dry season, when the wind carries sound farther and the nights grow longer. Others insist he is most active during storms, when thunder hides his footsteps and lightning reveals his silhouette for a heartbeat. There are even tales of El Silbón entering dreams, a figure at the edge of sleep, watching, waiting. His whistle echoes through the mind, and when the dreamer wakes, they find a bone on their doorstep. Clean, white, silent. Each version carries its own weight, its own warning, its own truth. But no matter how the story changes, one thing remains: the whistle. 7 notes, always the same, always wrong. And whether he is a hunter, a spirit, a shadow, or a memory, El Silbón walks still, through the plains, through the stories, through the silence that follows the sound. Raphael had walked that path 100 times, from the cantina to his home, past the old mango tree that leaned like a crooked sentinel over the dirt road. But that night, something felt different. The air was thick, unmoving. Even the insects had gone quiet. He was drunk, yes, but not so drunk that he couldn't feel the silence pressing against his skin. Then he heard it. A whistle, soft, gentle, floating on the wind like a lullaby. He stopped, blinked. It sounded far, so far it could have been coming from the next village. But his stomach turned. A cold sweat broke across his back. He took a step forward, and the whistle came again, still distant, still melodic. That's when the dogs began to howl. Not bark, not growl. They howled long, mournful cries that rose from the shadows like sirens. Raphael turned in a slow circle, heart pounding. The mango tree loomed above him, its branches swaying though there was no breeze. He saw nothing, no movement, no figure. But the whistle kept playing. Far, far, far. He ran. His feet stumbled over roots and rocks, his breath ragged, his vision blurred. He reached his house, slammed the door, bolted it, and collapsed against the wall. Inside, the whistle stopped. The next morning, Raphael was pale, silent. He refused to speak of what he'd seen or hadn't seen, but he never walked that path again, and he never touched another drop of rum. Some say El Silbón had come for him, but the dogs spook it away. Others say Raphael was spared because he ran before the counting began. But Raphael's story is not the only one. Far from the cantinas and crooked trees, in a quiet village pressed against the edge of the wild, another tale unfolds, one that begins not with sound, but with silence. Lucia had lived alone for years. Her house sat at the edge of the village, where the grass grew wild and the wind carried secrets. She was no stranger to solitude. She welcomed it. But one morning, she opened her door and found something waiting. A bone, clean, white, placed gently on the step like a gift or a warning. She stared at it for a long time, not touching it, not moving, just listening. The wind was still, the birds silent. She asked the neighbors, but no one had seen anything. No dogs had wandered, no children had played nearby, no one had passed her home. That night, she lit candles, whispered prayers, sat by the window, and waited. Then, just before midnight, she heard it. The whistle. It came once, then again, soft, distant, floating like mist through the trees. She stood, her hands trembled. The whistle sounded far, so far it could have been a dream. But she knew better. She locked the doors, closed the windows, sat in the center of the room and listened. The whistle continued, always far, never near. She did not sleep. At dawn, she opened the door again. Another bone, longer, heavier, placed exactly where the first had been. Lucia packed her things that morning, left the village without a word. No one saw her go, no one saw her again. Her story is whispered by neighbors, passed from porch to porch like a warning carried on the wind. Another tale, one not told by adults, but remembered by a child. A boy who heard something no one else believed, until it was too late. Mateo was 10 when he first heard the sound. It was late, the kind of night where the stars hide and the wind forgets to blow. His parents were asleep, the house was quiet. Then came the whistle. It drifted through the air like a song half remembered, soft, distant. Mateo sat up in bed, heart thudding. It sounded far, too far, but something felt wrong. He crept to the window, pulled back the curtain, and stared into the yard. Nothing. No movement, no shadow, just the stillness of night. Then he heard it. Click, click, click. Like bones being counted, one by one. Slow, deliberate. He froze. The sound came from just outside the window, but when he looked, there was no one there. He woke his father, who dismissed it as a dream, but Mateo knew he hadn't imagined it. The next night, the whistle returned, still distant, still soft. Then the counting. Click, click, click. Mateo didn't sleep. By the third night, the sound came earlier. The whistle played longer. The counting grew louder. The family left the village before the week was out. Years later, Mateo told the story to his own children, and he warned them, if you hear the whistle and it sounds far, don't wait, don't look, Don't speak. Just leave. In the shadow of El Silbón's legend, fear does not stand alone. It walks beside memory, and memory carries protection. Across the plains of Los Llanos, where the wind speaks in riddles and the nights stretch longer than they should, the people have learned to live with the legend, not by ignoring it, but by respecting it, by remembering the old ways, by holding close the rituals that have kept them safe for generations. These are not spells whispered by witches, nor charms sold in markets. They are acts of defiance, of reverence, of survival. The first is the dog. Not just any dog, but one that barks at shadows and howls at silence. El Silbón fears dogs. It is said that the two hounds sent after him by his grandfather still chase him through the night, biting at his heels, reminding him of the punishment he cannot escape. In many homes, dogs are kept not for companionship, but for protection. Their bark is a signal, their howl a warning. If the dog growls at nothing, if it whimpers at the door, the family knows to stay inside, to light candles, to speak no louder than a whisper. Then there is the whip, a simple tool, leather and wood. But in the hands of the brave, it becomes a weapon of memory. The whip was used to punish the boy who became the whistler. Each lash carved pain into his skin, each crack of leather a reminder of the life he destroyed. El Silbón remembers the sting, fears it. And so, in some villages, the whip is hung above the door, not to be used, but to be seen, a symbol, a warning, a message to the wandering spirit. You are not welcome here. And there is the chili, red, sharp, burning. It was rubbed into the boy's wounds as part of his punishment, and now it carries the weight of that pain. Some scatter chili powder across their thresholds. Others burn it in small bowls, letting the smoke rise into the night like a signal to the unseen. It is not the spice itself that wards him off. It is the memory it carries, the echo of suffering, the taste of justice. But rituals are not only physical. There are words too, prayers whispered in the native tongue, songs sung low beneath the breath, stories told to children not to entertain but to prepare. These are passed down like heirlooms, guarded like secrets, because in the plains, knowledge is protection. Some say El Silbón cannot enter a home where the family is united, where love is strong and respect is kept, that he feeds on broken bonds, on betrayal, on silence. And so, families gather at dusk. They eat together, speak together, listen together, not just to each other, but to the wind. Because the wind carries more than air. It carries warnings. There are even those who claim that El Silbón avoids homes where the story is told often, where his name is spoken not in fear, but in remembrance, as if the act of naming him robs him of power, as if the legend itself is a shield. In some villages, elders walk the perimeter of their homes at night, whispering the names of their ancestors, lighting small fires, leaving offerings of salt and ash, not to appease El Silbón, but to remind him that they remember, that they know. And when the whistle comes, soft, distant, lying, those who remember the rituals do not panic. They do not run. They prepare. They light the candles, hold the whip, let the dog bark, and they wait. Because El Silbón may be cursed to wander forever, but he does not wander blindly. He chooses. And those who know the old ways are not chosen. Legends do not rise from nothing. They are born from need, from silence that demands a voice, from fear that seeks a name. El Silbón is no exception. His story, though wrapped in horror and mystery, is a reflection of something deeper, something human. At its core, the legend of El Silbón is a tale of consequence. A boy commits an unspeakable act. A family is shattered. A punishment is delivered not by law, but by blood. And from that moment, a curse is born, not just upon the boy, but upon the land itself. Why did this story appear? In the isolated plains of Los Llanos, where families lived far from cities and justice was often personal, stories became tools of survival. El Silbón was not created to entertain. He was created to teach, to warn, to shape behavior in places where rules were spoken, not written. He is the embodiment of guilt, of broken family bonds, of the fear that violence within the home could echo far beyond its walls. In communities where respect for elders was sacred, the legend served as a stark reminder: dishonor your family, and you may carry that shame forever. But El Silbón is more than a moral tale. He is a mirror held up to the past, a symbol of generational trauma. The sack of bones he carries is not just his father's past. It is the weight of memory, of regret, of all the things that cannot be undone. Some believe the legend emerged as a way to process grief. In regions touched by war, poverty, and loss, El Silbón became a vessel for sorrow, a figure who walks endlessly, unable to rest, because the pain he caused and the pain he carries will never fade. Others see him as a guardian twisted by punishment, not evil, but broken, a soul who reminds us that actions have echoes, that the past is never truly buried. And then there is the whistle. 7 notes, always the same, always reversed. It is not just a sound, it is a signal, a lie, a test. It forces the listener to question what they hear, to doubt their instincts, to feel the breath of danger even when none is seen. In this way, El Silbón becomes a psychological presence, a creature of uncertainty. The legend persists because it speaks to something universal: the fear of being watched, the guilt of past mistakes, the longing for redemption, and the knowledge that some wounds never heal. El Silbón walks the plains, yes, but he also walks through stories, through memories, through the quiet spaces between generations. He is not just a ghost, he is a question. And the answer is never simple. The legend of El Silbón did not emerge from a vacuum. It was born in a place shaped by conflict, isolation, and the slow passage of time. To understand the creature, one must first understand the land and the people who gave him life. Los Llanos, the vast plains that stretch across Venezuela and Colombia, have long been a place of extremes. Blistering heat, torrential rains, a horizon so wide it swallows sound. For centuries, these lands were home to cattle ranchers, farmers, and families who lived far from the reach of cities and governments. In such isolation, stories became more than entertainment. They became tools, warnings, lessons. El Silbón's tale is believed to have emerged sometime in the 19th century, though no written record marks his first appearance. Instead, he spread through oral tradition, whispered from one generation to the next. His story carried the weight of morality. Respect your parents, honor your family, beware the consequences of rage. In a time when discipline was harsh and justice often personal, the legend served as a reminder of what could happen when boundaries were broken. But there's more beneath the surface. Some folklorists believe El Silbón reflects deeper cultural anxieties. The fear of patricide, the killing of one's father, is not just a crime, it's a rupture in the natural order. In rural communities where family was everything, such an act would have been unthinkable. The legend punishes that act with eternal suffering, reinforcing the sacred bond between parent and child. Others see El Silbón as a symbol of guilt, a wandering soul burdened by the weight of his own actions. His sack of bones is not just a physical object, it is memory, regret, the past that cannot be buried. There are even interpretations that tie the legend to colonial trauma. The grandfather's punishment, whipping, exile, and the release of the dogs, echoes the brutal methods used during times of conquest and rebellion. In this view, El Silbón becomes a reflection of historical violence, a ghost born from the wounds of a nation. Despite the lack of formal documentation, the legend has endured. It appears in schoolbooks, radio dramas, and local festivals. In some towns, children dress as El Silbón during carnival, wearing wide-brimmed hats and carrying sacks filled with bones made of wood. The creature has become part of the cultural fabric, feared, yes, but also understood. And while the story has evolved, its core remains unchanged. A boy commits a terrible act. He is punished. He becomes something else. And he walks still, through history, through memory, through the long, quiet nights of the plains. Because El Silbón is not just a legend. He is a mirror, held up to the past. Time moves forward, but legends do not fade. They shift, they adapt. They find new voices, new shadows, new ways to whisper. El Silbón, once a tale told by firelight in the plains of Los Llanos, now walks through the digital world. His whistle echoes not just through the trees, but through podcasts, videos, and stories shared across screens. He has become more than folklore. He is a symbol, a presence, a myth reborn in modern breath. In Venezuela and Colombia, his story is still told to children, not as a bedtime tale, but as a warning. Parents speak his name when the wind grows strange. Teachers mention him in lessons about culture and tradition. His image appears in festivals, where masks and costumes bring him to life in the streets, tall, silent, with a sack of bones slung over his shoulder. But beyond the borders of his origin, El Silbón has found new ground. In 2018, the legend stepped onto the screen in the Venezuelan horror film El Silbón Orígenes, directed by Gisbert Bermudez. The movie reimagines the tale with eerie minimalism, following a father who must protect his daughter from a curse tied to the Whistler. The film's haunting visuals and slow-burning tension capture the dread of the original folklore, while introducing El Silbón to a global audience under the English title The Whistler: Origins. It's not just a horror story, it's a cultural artifact, a cinematic echo of the plains. In Guanarito, Portuguesa, the legend is celebrated, not feared, through music. The Festival Internacional de Música Llanera El Silbón is an annual event that honors the soul of the plains. Musicians gather to perform joropo, the traditional music of the region, using instruments like the arpa, cuatro, and maracas. The festival includes dramatizations of the legend, poetic competitions, and even a children's showcase called El Silboncito. It's a living tribute to the myth, transforming fear into rhythm, memory into melody. Here, El Silbón does not haunt, he dances. In the town of Guanarito, a statue stands tall and silent. It depicts El Silbón as he is remembered, gaunt, towering with a sack of bones slung over his shoulder. His wide-brimmed hat casts a shadow over his face, and his posture leans forward under the weight of his burden. This monument is more than stone. It is remembrance. A physical embodiment of the legend, carved into the landscape of the plains. Visitors come to see him, to take photos, to remember. He is also featured in the cultural theme park, La Venezuela de Antir, where guests walk through immersive recreations of Venezuelan history and folklore. There, El Silbón is not just a story, he is an experience. And still, the whistle remains. 7 notes, always the same, always reversed. It is heard in dreams, in stories, in the quiet moments when the night feels too still. It reminds us that some legends do not die. They evolve. They wait. El Silbón walks with us now, through headphones, through screens, through the spaces between truth and fear. And if you hear the whistle, soft, melodic, drifting far on the wind. Listen closely, because if it sounds far, he is near, and he may already be watching.